Good afternoon, good people. This is your host, Calvin Anderson, with the Check In With podcast. Today I have an amazing guest, another amazing guest. She's actually a podcaster herself for the Un-Seen Legacies of Childhood podcast. I've taken a few looks at the guests she's had. It's incredible. The journeys, the stories, the questions that she asks her guests, and just the care that she has when she has guests on her podcast is just, there's no words really. So when you hear her speak today and we hear her journey, please just take note and apply it to your life, because there's so many gems and so much value this person has. So ladies and gentlemen, we want to give a warm welcome to Sonia Seekunto today. Sonia, how are you?
Hi, Kelvin. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much. I'm very, very excited. Thank you for that very kind introduction. I'm very, very honoured to be here.
No, it's the honor's all mine, and I'm just speaking the truth, honestly.
Thank you.
So Sonia, yes, you do podcasting, and I'm brand new to it. I started in November. So I guess my first question for you is, what made you want to start a podcast, and just how has that journey been for you?
Uh, well, I was at a bit of a crossroads in my life. I had always wanted to write, and I knew I had to do something with speaking, but I just didn't know what that would look like. I had no idea where to start.
Yeah.
When I was a child, when I was in senior school, I always wanted to be a writer. Um, but because various teachers told the whole class that none of us had any writing talent,
Yeah.
so instead of fighting for what I wanted to do, I chose to go off and do something else completely. And I hit 40, 45,
Yeah.
and started to think, this isn't right. I'm not doing what I love. I'm not passionate about what I do. I enjoy it, but it's not my passion. But I didn't know what my passion was. And when I asked my family, what do you think I'm good at? They just said, well, you're a natural talker. You talk a lot. Surely it should have something to do with that. And so it was a pandemic, just after the pandemic, and I had just finished a master's in children, youth, and international development.
Yeah.
And I originally thought, yay, I'm going to go and work for UNICEF or something like that. But they require 5 to 10 years experience. And I'm already in my 40s. I was at the time. And I thought, well, this isn't going to work. What can I do? How can I help kids? How can I help parents? How can I help anyone, really? And I thought maybe it would help to talk about what I've been through. I found that childhood trauma really has had an impact on me, on my self-esteem particularly. And I thought maybe other people feel the same out there. And also, I wanted to stop that from impacting the next generation, particularly intergenerational trauma.
Mm.
So I thought maybe I'll start a podcast about this. And the guests seemed to come very naturally. I did get a podcast, I recruited a podcast agency. And originally I had these massive ideas about, I'm going to get Joe Wicks. I'm going to get Emma Willis or something like that. And slowly I realized that as an unknown entity, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And so the guests came very, very organically. One guest, so Sophie, she was my neighbour. She's CEO of a children's hospice, Noah's Ark Children's Hospice, and she happened to be a neighbour of mine. And I saw her on the tube, and she just asked me, "What are you doing these days?" And I just said, "I'm doing a podcast." And she just said naturally, "Can I be on it?" And that was fantastic,
Amazing.
And another person came on. He was someone I worked with, Hassan. He was a journalist that I worked with, and he'd come over from. He was a child refugee, and that was great. So I found that all these big ideas I had were probably I was running before I could walk, and all the guests that I had eventually recruited were actually perfect for my first series. And I was really excited about it. I was really excited. Did have a little bit of imposter syndrome. I'm sure everyone does. But I found the whole process very strengthening.
Mm.
So when I started, I was incredibly insecure. I hated the idea of being on video. I didn't like my voice. And I really panicked that I had nothing of value to say. And I worried, because I do get very nervous, I worried that when the microphone is switched on, that I would forget the questions and I would stumble over my words. But actually, it wasn't as bad as I thought. I mean, I'd have terrible anxiety before a session. I'd be crying, I'd be stressed out, I'd be saying, I can't do this, I'm not doing it, I'm cancelling it. But it was fine. The first 10 minutes were always difficult. The first 10, 15 minutes were always difficult.
Yeah.
Because I'd have a list of 30 questions that I'd researched this guest, and they would answer those 30 questions, and they'd answer 10 questions in 5 minutes, because they would just expand.
Yeah.
And suddenly I'd be looking at my sheet and I wouldn't know where I was, because they'd answered question 1 to 5 and then 10, 15. And I thought, oh no, I don't know where I am now. And so I learnt over the series to just go with the flow, which I was never very good at doing. I was very sort of uptight, and it had to go as I expected it to go, and in this order. And I learnt that listening is an art, and that's what I need to do more of.
Definitely not.
And so that's what happened. So towards the end of the series, I kind of had some guide questions, maybe 10 guide questions and topics, and the rest I just let the guest talk. And that was a big learning curve for me, because I really thought it had to be all structured. And I said that to you today, didn't I, when I arrived? I've got no structure, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But it's, I felt that the structure keeps you safe.
Mm.
And actually, it doesn't need to be that way.
That is interesting what you just said, like the structure keeping you safe. Speak to me more on that, in terms of just structure in general, keeping one safe.
Well, I feel like everything in life, if I don't have a structure, everything will fall apart. You won't get to where you want to be. You know how they say you need a plan, you need a 10-step plan or whatever to get to your pension, or to get to this or whatever. And it's kind of the culture I came from.
Yeah.
If you don't do that degree, you're not going to get anywhere in life. If you don't have a pension, you're going to be poor. If you don't, even the to-do list for your day, how is your day going to be if you just went with the flow? It just makes me panic. I get so stressed about it. I have to have a to-do list, otherwise I don't know. I feel lost. I don't know what I'm doing. What if what would happen if you took my to-do list away? I actually would be completely lost. And I'd feel like I'm unproductive, done nothing. And that's why I say it kind of keeps me safe. I know what I'm doing with a list. I know what I'm doing if I have a structure. But if you take that away, I think I would cry.
It's amazing, in terms of just the focus and the direction you decided to go in regards to now being a podcaster yourself, and thinking to yourself, okay, let me have a go. And from what I've seen, it's going really well.
Thank you. It was great. It took a lot to do that, actually. I suffered with low self-esteem a lot of my life. And for me to put myself in front of a microphone and dig out some confidence and courage from absolutely nowhere, it took a lot, it took a lot. But I love connecting with people. I love listening to their stories. And I'm a big old chatterbox, and I love chatting myself. I love nothing more than sitting in a cafe for 5 hours, listening to someone and chatting with them about their stories and their life, And I thought, well, translate that to a podcast. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
And it works for me. I really, really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. I have to think about series 2, but I mean, I've listened to your guests. How interesting are they?
They're all...
and you're on a roll, Calvin, aren't you?
You know what? It's like you said, when you begin, you don't know how to navigate. So literally after the first guest, it just kept going. Which I'm so grateful for everyone that's come on, even yourself. Like you're part of season 2 now.
Ooh.
So that in itself is just a testament to, I feel like when people have like a call in, or you have something that they need to do, it just organically starts to happen.
I think you're right. I think it does. Are you enjoying yours?
I'm loving it. I'm yes, I'm a therapist, but I actually love conversation. I love to speak to people. I love to listen. I think I'm more of a listener than a speaker.
Yeah.
Because I've had, many people say to me, Calvin, like, we need to hear more from you on your podcast. I said, okay. So I know I have to do an episode with myself involved. But I just love to listen. I love to hear where a person's at. I love to hear their journey. I love to hear what their current, present thoughts are, what their future thoughts are. And within that, I'm able to I guess, sow seeds of encouragement, positivity, and I guess reinforced dreams that they probably have put to the back burner or are not really too sure on, because that's just the person I am, really. So,
Oh, that's beautiful, Calvin.
yeah,
So many people need that. Whether it's an adult or a child, everyone needs encouragement, don't they?
definitely.
And that just sows the seed of their self-esteem and their self-value
Yeah.
and also their skills. So a lot of people don't even know what their skills are. I had no idea.
Yeah.
So I think I've been through about 5 life coaches because I just couldn't work out whether what they were telling me was the right thing or whether it felt right or did it really, resonate with me. It takes a long time. I mean, there were, if you're lucky enough to be born knowing what you want to do, like an actor, say, or a singer,
Yeah.
that's a very lucky position to be in because the vast majority of people that I've met have no clue what they're not happy in their jobs, but they don't know what else to do,
Yeah.
And so to be in a position where you are naturally doing what you love to do, I think that's the best position to be in, isn't it?
100%. 100%. It's I guess it's like it's a privilege. It's an honor to host someone and for them to speak on the work that they do, that they may not necessarily have a platform or place to do that, and feel comfortable in doing it. I think that's the first thing. If someone's comfortable to speak and it's safe,
Yeah.
that's the main thing for me. If they're not comfortable, I'll never ever push anyone to say anything.
No, well, you've created a very safe space here, so I feel very comfortable.
Oh, I
So
appreciate.
I'm happy to talk about any subject that we feel compelled to talk about today. I don't feel unsafe in any way. So thank you for providing that.
Oh, it is my pleasure, Sonia. It's my pleasure. So, the podcast.
Yes.
And wanted to touch upon it because you said you had all these big ideas in the beginning, and you shouldn't let go of those. I definitely feel like the people you want to come on will eventually come on, so it's only a matter of time. That's my personal
Thank you.
thought. Where do you see the podcast going, Sonia? Because obviously I'm not in your mind, but I can tell that you have a place in mind. If you don't mind sharing, how far do you
Well,
see it going?
well, I see my initial was my initial idea was to talk to adults about childhood trauma.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to show people where you're at, where you're starting from. You're starting from adulthood. We're talking to adults now. But where does it all come from? So when you get the adults to talk about their own childhoods,
Yeah.
I feel like the next series I can start going back to childhood, So I've started where you are now, where we all are now. We're all like adults. And then I'll go back to childhood and I'll discuss, I want to cover everything. Childhood is a huge spectrum. Where do you start? I'm not a therapist.
And that's funny because I actually thought you was a therapist.
No,
I
not at
literally
all.
thought you was a therapist.
No, I'm a lived experience.
Wow.
So I had my own, I will talk about it, but I had my own traumas. But I'm not a therapist, I'm not a counselor. I just love listening to other people's because my end game is that I would like to either create programs or facilitate or help in some way to heal childhood trauma in children, to heal the traumas that they're going through. What can we do? Do we need a round circle of people, a village of people? How can we help children, the next generation, heal so that they don't end up like we are, the walking wounded almost, like the people who are carrying so many burdens mentally, physically, and everything. So that's where I wanted to go. That's my end game. But with the podcast, I wanted to go through everything. I wanted to talk about child development, to talk about how trauma starts, from the mum being pregnant to the home environment to the relationship between parents to single parent families to poverty to food poverty to education, teachers, social workers, everything, every person the child comes into contact with. I would love to do a series on it,
Yeah.
and to explore every part of that child's journey from the earliest memory to getting to teenage years and then eventual adults. But I've started with adulthood. And then I'd love to write a book. I'd love to have a documentary. I can just see it going and going. As long as there are people who want to talk, I'm happy to listen. That's what I would like to do. And then create programs as well. If I can create programs in schools, I mean, there are already lots of amazing programs in schools, but I don't find that it's in every school and it's not in every area. I remember going to a members club and speaking to two ladies who were, I think, trustees or something like that of a school. And I remember saying to them, "Oh, I'd love to create these programs for children, like self-confidence, self-esteem, self-value, because I think that's so important for children to have from young, so that they know what their rights are and they know what they shouldn't put up with. And then that stops that even just that little thing will help stop the abuse cycle. If you know you shouldn't be accepting that, you cut it off before it even starts. You get like a bad feeling about someone, you just keep walking. You don't just get into that.
Yeah.
So that's just one element. And I remember saying to her, I'd love to help create programs, that would help children. And they said, "Oh, we already have those. There are already thousands of programs like that all over the UK." And I thought, well, if that is true, why are we still seeing so many children suffering from a young age up to teens? Why are they suffering if we have so much support in schools? We don't have. As far as I can see, if you look at the papers and what they're saying and the statistics, mental health is in a huge rise for all ages of children.
Yeah.
So there can't be that much support as we're all thinking there are in schools. There's not enough money, there's not enough support. Teachers are exiting the profession at a ridiculous pace. So I feel that there is still something I could help with, but I'm not the expert. I need to gather the experts together. So that's where I'd like to go, and that's where I'd like to take the podcast to. So we shall see what happens. Yep.
No, it's definitely going to go there and beyond that, Sonia. So I look forward to seeing all of what you just said happen as well.
Thank you. Fingers crossed. When I was born, my mum had TB, and she was for 6 months in hospital.
Mhm. For the listeners, can you tell us what TB is?
Tuberculosis.
Okay.
And she was very ill. And she was in hospital for the first 6 months of my life. So I was put into foster care for 6 months as a little baby. Obviously, I don't have any memory of that. And I was told by my parents that I absolutely loved my foster care family. So I'm very thankful to them for looking after me. Apparently, they absolutely adored me. When you look at the research, they do say the bond between mother and child and baby is very, very, very strong and very important from birth. So if you think that I've already been pulled from that, I guess there must have been some impact. I don't know. I do have ridiculous attachment to my parents. So even at this ridiculous age of 50, if they've got a little sniffle of a cold, I'd become hysterical. So there must be some attachment there. But after that, I was a very happy child, as a very bubbly little girl. And then I think when we got to 5, my parents decided to move us back to their home country of Mauritius. And that's where I struggled, because from the age of 5 to 7, I guess, I could not get on with the schooling system there. They didn't have international schools at that stage. And so no one spoke English and I didn't speak their language. The children didn't accept me because I couldn't speak. I couldn't communicate. And children being children, they picked on that which they don't know, they don't understand. And so I had a horrible, horrible time. And I think within 18 months, in an 18-month period, I moved to school 3 times. And eventually my mum said to my dad, she's not learning at all. She's not learning. I was picked on by the teachers. I was told off constantly. I was sent outside to stand in the hot sun all day until my mum collected me at 3 o'clock. The kids would call me names. They would push and shove or whatever it was that we're doing. I and I that's when I started to get a nervous tummy. You know how children are, where they're like, I don't want to go to school. I don't feel well. I feel sick. That's when I started to develop a nervous tummy and wouldn't go to school. And that's when my mum had to keep going to the teachers and asking them, why does she not want to come to school? You know. And so eventually I was moved 2 or 3 times. It just didn't work. I just wasn't accepted. The teachers they struggled to teach me because I couldn't understand what they were saying. So eventually my parents had to bring me back to the UK. And in the first infant school that I was put in, the teacher said to my mum, is she a mute? Because she is not speaking at all. She just will not speak. And my mum said, no, she speaks fine at home. And they said, well, she's not speaking at all. She's turned to face the wall and she's playing with her doll and she won't interact with the kids and she won't talk at all and she's not learning. And at that stage, I think I could barely read, I think. So eventually my parents, bless them, had to put me in private school, in a private junior school, simply because of the number of children was less. So I think there was only 11 children in that class. And suddenly, and it was a convent school, and the nuns were quite strict over there, but I had one that absolutely adored me, and she encouraged me, and she thought I was a lovely little girl, and she really understood me, and she took me under her wing, and I felt safe, and I felt encouraged, and I felt accepted. And for the first time, I met a girl, I made a friend, and that friend loved me unconditionally. And it changed everything, having that unconditional love, having the support of the teacher, and having a friend, where you belong to, who you belong to, who just, stuck up for you, protected you, you had fun with. I mean, that changed everything. I thrived, I did fine in class. I was there for 4 years. But unfortunately, because my parents had to travel to take me to that school, my dad's job, his hours changed. And when I came to the age of going to secondary school, he just said, you can't go with your friend to her secondary school because I won't be able to pick you up and drop you off. It's just impossible because it's too far. So I had to go back to local secondary school, which then made me start again. And that whole starting again process is so difficult for children. I've left UK where I loved my teacher and I loved my friends to go to Mauritius, changed 3 schools where no one liked me, where I wasn't fitting in and where I was being heavily bullied, to be brought back to the UK to another school where I refused to speak, and then take me to another school, and then take me to another school. I mean, I just got fed up of it. I just was so fed up. By the age of 12, I was done with making friends. I couldn't be bothered, and when you go to secondary school, the children already have their childhood friends. They've already got their peers established. So when you're starting again at 12, it's just such a difficult situation. And being nervous, of a nervous disposition and anxious and always sicky, I found that very difficult. But the one thing I would say I was very lucky with was the little friend I made in my first infant school on arrival to the UK. She was there on my first day at senior school because I went back to the local school. And so as I walked through first day of school in the assembly hall, where you have to go and sit down, waiting to be told welcome to the school, I heard this little voice shout out, Sonia, son, come and sit here. And I turned around and saw Dawn, who was my best friend at that first infant school. And she called me and asked me to come and sit down. And suddenly I thought, oh, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Mhm.
And I am so grateful to her today. We reconnected a couple of months back. And she had listened to the podcast and she said, I'm so sorry, I didn't know how much you suffered. And I'm really sorry that I wasn't a better friend in senior school. And, we hadn't kept in touch very well over the 40 odd years.
Yeah.
But she apologized for that. And I had to tell her that I'm so grateful to you for how you protected me because you saved me in that first day from being really lonely and really stressed out. You made me feel welcome. And she protected me for the 5 years of the time that she was at school. She protected me that whole time. And so school is a very difficult place to be for young kids, with the bullying and the trying to make friends and the what do you want to do and the options and the teachers, whether you have a positive teacher, a negative teacher. I mean, the whole education system is quite a stressful place, isn't it? And so for me, I found school to be probably more stressful than a difficult home life, because if you don't have the support of your teachers and you don't have friends, then that's where you learn to be yourself. That's where you learn confidence. Obviously you get it from home, and that is the starting point. But for me, if I didn't have friends at school and I didn't have teachers that supported me, then I just didn't thrive at all. I didn't thrive. And there's a book, I don't know if you've heard of it, Dandelions and Orchids? Yes. Um, so I've been reading that lately, and I was trying to work out what I was, because obviously in the dandelion and the orchid, the author talks about the different types of children and how they thrive. And the dandelion is a child that can thrive in any situation that you put them in. Whether their home life is difficult or whether their school life is difficult, they have friends, they don't have friends. They thrive, they can get on. Whilst the orchid, wilts and is a little more fragile and doesn't do so well if the environment isn't conducive to their growth, I guess. And I was trying to work out when I was reading it what I was, because I think I'm a bit of both, because in order to manage those school environments, I disassociated. I would actually go off into a daydream. If I didn't like what was going on in my environment, if people were screaming at me, shouting at me, calling me names, I would just daydream my life away. And I don't know if that led to me becoming a procrastinator in adult life. I'm not sure, because it's hard for me to get things done because I just go off in a daydream all the time. But I find that I must have been quite strong to be able to put up with the bullying, but at the same time fragile, because I didn't thrive. I just existed, you know. So I guess I'm a mixture of both, if that's even a thing, you know. But school life was very difficult for me, and when I was going through my teenage years, and you're going through a little ugly duckling phase, and you're not feeling kind or happy with yourself, I come from a very, very big family. I have cousins all over the place. I mean, it was the best childhood in that you always had someone to play with. Even if you didn't have friends in school, your family life was massive. My family life was massive. And I find myself, the old self-esteem and low self-value, I find myself really suffering in those big family get-togethers. When everyone else loves the big family get-together, your parents have a party. I hated them. I absolutely hated them because I didn't like how I looked. I was so quiet, and I didn't feel like, I wasn't naturally a witty person, and I wasn't fast thinking because I was always in a daydream. So I'd miss half of what was going on anywhere. I'd be like, oh, what, sorry, did you say? What did you say? I'd miss the jokes. I'd miss the rules of the game. I'd miss everything because I was like, off in my own world. And so I used to get taken the mickey out of a lot. They were like, well, Sonia's not listening. Sonia's really silly. Sonia's this, Sonia's that. And I found all those sort of opinions and judgments of me. I found that really difficult to deal with as a teenager, because I wanted to be popular. And when I looked at my family, like a lot of the girls in my family, they were so popular. They were all stunningly pretty. I mean, my sister's gorgeous. All of my first cousins, absolutely stunning looking. And I didn't feel that I fit that mold. So I didn't look like the others did. And that instantly that others you, doesn't it? It makes you feel different automatically and also how people talk to you. So you notice from the adults in your environment where they say, oh, she's so pretty, look at the clothes that she's wearing, she looks amazing, but they don't say it to you. Now, they didn't say anything bad to you. They just didn't call you out for being pretty or call you out for having nice clothes. And you notice that as a teenager, when you're going through difficult feelings, you already notice that you're being othered, that they're not treating you the same as others, Or they'll say, "Oh God, she's so clever. Your cousin's so clever," but you've never been called clever ever. So you notice these little things, and they stick with you. I remember, you know, my dad. We had two ladders, and I needed to go up in the loft. And there's the silver ladder that everyone knows. You put it up, and then there's the outdoor wooden ladder. And I said I want to go in the loft, and Dad said, "Well, go and get the ladder." And there was a party going on, and there were all these uncles and aunts around, and I just didn't think for 1 second. And I got the outdoor ladder, and I was trying to drag it inside the house. My dad was like, "What on earth are you doing?" And everybody started laughing. And you remember, you're like, "Oh God, I've been stupid again. I'm stupid. I'm just stupid, aren't I? I never get it. I never get anything right." And it's that perpetuating thought that just keeps going. And no one's saying anything really bad to you, but it's just how you feel. And you can feel the judgment sometimes. You can feel the judgment. And they don't mean to be horrible. They're not meaning to be derogatory in any way, but you just feel that. You just feel that you're not being treated or judged the same way as others are. Like, for instance, my sister is fast. She's a fast thinker, and she's very, very funny.
Mm.
So instantly you can see they will say, "Oh, Shal, so, she's so pretty, she's so funny." Whilst with me, they won't say anything. And I really struggled. Like, I've said that twice now, 3 times, but I really struggled with those judgments, or what they didn't say. What they did say and what they didn't say. I really was very sensitive to that growing up. And I remember having my first boyfriend, and you're really excited, you've got the best outfit on, you're going to meet the family, and it's going to be a big family party. And you go in, and you're waiting for everyone to say, "Oh, really like your girlfriend, really, she's really lovely, she's really pretty, she's really great fun." And the only feedback I got was, "Oh, we think your girlfriend's really ugly." And it's like, oh my God, these are like formative years, like the teenage years, your formative years. How you feel from young to teenage impacts how you feel and what you put up with when you're older, right? So if you're feeling ugly and not valuable throughout your childhood, then it it impacts how you show up in the workplace, in your later relationships, in your friendships. And it also makes you extra sensitive. So even if someone's not trying to be derogatory, you take it as someone's being derogatory, because it's triggering, isn't it?
Yep.
And I would turn up at workplaces and be hideously bullied. As a travel agent, I became a travel agent in the end because I wanted to be an author, but the teacher told us all that we had no talent. So I became I decided I wanted to travel the world. So I went to university to study travel. And when I got a job as a travel agent, a business travel consultant, it's just 80% ladies. And ladies aren't always kind to each other. So I found that environment to be really triggering, because there was just such a, "She's not part of our group. We're not going to include her in this. We'll go out to lunch, but we're not going to include her in lunch." It's like being at school. It was incredibly difficult. And I never said anything. I just went back to being that person that doesn't speak. I said nothing. That whole time in my travel agency years, I think, I didn't say very much. I didn't speak out for myself, and I didn't stick up for myself at all. I just felt hideously bullied. But when I hit my 40s and coming up to 50s, I don't know if it's the whole hormone cycle and the perimenopause, but there's something in you that rises up and says, "I'm no longer putting up with what I used to put up with." And so now I've hit 50. God help anyone that tries to say anything to me, because I'm so much stronger now, and I've just realized you can't do that for the rest of your life. You can't keep accepting less than you deserve. And so going through, the menopausal years, I guess it's given me time to think about what I would like, how my second part of my life is going to be, what is acceptable, what isn't acceptable, and also thinking about living a different type of life now, filled with passion, filled with joy, and sort of having a different standard for yourself. Because I think when you're younger, you accept a lot of things and you don't value yourself very much or highly, and you accept a lot of things that you shouldn't accept. And you allow people to reduce you and to make you less than and to make you feel less than. And you accept that and you feel that it's an acceptable thing to do. But when you get older, whatever age that might be for everyone else, but for me, it was my late 40s to my 50s. I realized I could no longer accept people treating me like I wasn't valuable or that I had nothing valuable to say or that I was incredibly stupid, because I felt my whole life that I was stupid because I was comparing myself. And comparison is that, that, God, I call it the devil. But, comparing yourself constantly to other people, you never quite measure up, and you don't allow yourself to be you. You don't even know who you are. And that's been a process, going through my 40s and trying to learn who I am, what I like. Even now, I still have days where I think, oh, I don't think I'm doing the right thing. Ugh, do I have anything of value to say? What am I doing with my life? I don't know what I'm doing. I still have those days, but it's less now than it used to be. So for me, because I struggled with that, I really don't want the next generation to struggle with it. I think teaching self-confidence and self-value from a young age is really, really important to make sure that they are thriving into teen years and into adulthood. And if you think about it, you end up with a whole universe of happy, thriving people being productive and contributing positively to society. And I think it starts with self-esteem. And with that, you probably have to start talking to parents about how to support their kids, I guess.
Firstly, thank you so much for just going through your journey. I mean, there's two main questions I'm gonna ask you, but I just wanted to say I did my best or tried my best not to like tear up and stuff because it was just, I guess the main question or the one thing that kept coming up for me when you were speaking was, how comes you didn't give up? Like what kept you going, from young to your middle years to being an adult to there was always adversity just thrown in your face from people closest to you, people external to you, environments, different locations and all these things, people who were meant to teach you and help you grow and people who say they love you. What was it that just kept you going? Like, why didn't you give up? What was the one thing that just kept you saying, you know what, I'm just gonna keep walking. I'm not gonna give up. I'm not gonna stop.
I don't think there was any one thing. What I did was I disassociated. Anything that I didn't like, I pretended I didn't hear it, and then I would go up to my room and cry and write in my journal. I didn't have the confidence to stand up and say, don't talk to me like that, or don't say that about me. And no, I'm not. But I would write a lot in my journals about how angry I was about things that were happening. I mean, it was usually teachers, to be honest. It was usually school things that really made me angry. Yeah, of course, family stuff does show up. That's normal. And you would always write about your family stuff. But I had a lot of trouble with love in my love life. And I think there's two things. There's disassociation, where I just pretended it wasn't happening, and a slight rebellious streak. There was like a little thin vein of rebelliousness where I just think, I hate you. I was like, I hate you. I don't like you. I'm not talking to you, and I would do that. I would sometimes, I remember these are really, I'm sure your listeners will think, God, these are so silly, these examples. But they're small things, but they're big things in your world, right?
Yeah.
So I remember once, I was so old fashioned as a teenager, and I was such a hopeless romantic. And I loved old romance songs, so Lionel Richie, which is not cool when you're 16, like listening to Lionel Richie. But I would buy his album. I remember a cousin of mine, she was my bestest friend, and I love her to bits. And she was so funny, but she had bought In Excess, Michael Hutchence, and I had bought Lionel Richie's latest album, and I was so excited to buy that album, and I ran around there, and I showed her the album, and she burst out laughing. She's like, "You're such an old fogey, I can't believe you bought that album." She said, "I bought In Excess." I was so offended by her comment. I picked up my album and I marched out of her room and then marched back out of her garden and straight through my mum's back door and stormed upstairs and slammed my door. So there was a little bit of that rebellion where I'm not putting up with it, but I can't talk. I couldn't use my voice. I couldn't stand up for myself. I could have just, like, if that was someone else in my family, they were like, "Oh, shut up. You know, your In Excess is rubbish as well." You know, they would just say that and you carry on with your day. But I couldn't vocalize it. I couldn't put into words how upset I was. And so I would just have a tantrum and throw my dummy out the pram and just walk home and slam the door. But there was that rebelliousness there. There was a strength. There was an inner strength.
Mm.
You know, I put up with it, but I didn't put up with it. I put up with it, but I wouldn't say anything. But I wouldn't be happy about it. But I wouldn't know how to do anything about it, you know? And in those days, your parents would always say to you something like, "Get over it. Just stop being so silly. You know, you're being sensitive. You're being too sensitive. Just stop it." You know, because in those days, your family wanted to dance and party. I don't know about yours, but my family were party animals. We were having parties all the time.
All the time.
And so they don't want you to be being a miserable sod upstairs, you know. They wanted you to be part of the life of the party. So if I'm constantly having issues with what people are saying to me and I'm constantly running upstairs to my room, it's obviously not a very sociable thing to do. And then your parents get embarrassed because their daughter's being really grumpy as usual. And so, you know, I I wasn't very sociable as a teenager. You know, I really wasn't. And so now I'm very mindful to make sure when I'm at a family party that I am being the life and soul of the party. I'm really bubbly, I'm really happy, and if anyone says something that's triggering, I'll take a little moment in the toilet. I go in the toilet, just give myself a little pep talk. Don't be silly. You know, you're 50 now. Don't be so ridiculous. Snap out of it. No one's causing you harm. Just, you know, have a little moment and I come back out and I get a little drink and I get on with the party. It still happens, you know, from teenage to adulthood. It still happens. Not to the same degree, but there's still a trigger. And I haven't had therapy for it. I don't even know why. I don't know whether it's because therapy in our culture is seen as something like, really? Do you really need it? Just snap out of it. You can talk yourself out of these things. You don't need a therapist. I don't know if it's that, if it's frowned upon, or whether I feel that maybe I don't need it anymore. I mean, it's always nice to talk to someone. It's always nice to get them out. I think there's also a fear. There's a really big fear that if I start talking, I'll unravel. And then I won't be able to put myself back together again. So I don't want to talk. I mean, I'll talk about it to you or to friends. I can talk about things like that. And I'm happy to talk about anything.
Yeah.
If I feel like if I went into therapy, that's acknowledging there's something wrong with me and that I'm broken and that someone has to fix me. And then I will worry that I can't be fixed. And I feel that that will lead to some other kind of craziness that might happen, you know? So I feel like I can sort this out myself. I'm reading books, I'm talking on the podcast, I'm listening to other people's experiences, and I'm learning from theirs. And then I feel like my healing will come through helping other children to make sure they don't go through. You know, because I have had the worst experience. You know, I wasn't beaten as a child. You know, I wasn't sexually abused or, you know, I didn't have cigarette burns on my arms. You know, my childhood wasn't that, you know, my childhood was just fun and lovely. You know, I had a great time. So I feel like, should I really be complaining? You know, it wasn't the worst childhood ever. I just had some things that were difficult, you know. And there are other children and other adults who had suffered with much worse. You know, we had holidays, we had Christmas presents, we had a safe home, we had love, you know. And so I feel like, should I really be complaining? So there's that part of me that just says, you know what, stop bringing attention to yourself and just help other people.
Yeah. two things I want to ask you. And you said it just now, and it's so interesting that you said you haven't gone to therapy for it, because I literally was going to ask you that question, so you answered it for me. And I wanted to ask you, do you think it is a therapist's job to fix you?
Do you know, that's probably what I think they do.
Okay.
I probably think, because I haven't done it.
Yeah.
I've been to a counsellor, just a couple of sessions when I was really angry. I just went to the counsellor and it was so lovely. It was just nice to have someone who listened to you and just told you that you were okay and that you were a lovely person. That was fine. But therapy, no. And I guess I probably, in my head, think it's a therapist's job to fix you.
I'll enlighten you, because I love what you said. We are, and this is so interesting to have this conversation with you, because it's one that I've had since I've started training and, you know, working with clients, is we are literally not here to fix you. That is not our job at all. If I can give you the analogy so you can fully grasp it as well, is you take us by the hand and you guide us through your life journey. What we do is, if there's something in your life journey that you may overlook or you are avoiding, or it looks different, we'll just ask you, oh, what's this over here? Can you explain it to me? You may not want to. There's no pressure. But if there's something that keeps coming up on this journey and keeps surfacing, we may just kindly ask, let's take a look at that. Let's see what this is, because if we can dive into this more, and I'll use what you just said in terms of unraveling, and you may not be able to put yourself back together. I see it more of, you know, when there's like, okay, like when you get a package and they've wrapped it like to the fullest degree, there's like 10,000 pieces of paper and sellotape.
Absolutely.
Once you pull back all the paper and all the stuff, it's the gift that you, or the item that you purchased, so you can see it in its entirety. There's nothing blocking it. It's literally clear as day. And I feel, and this is just from everything that you said, and just for letting me into your life today, which I'm so thankful for, is I think the unraveling aspect of you would be the person, if we want to say, who's been covered by life's journey, and the person that you see yourself becoming. Because when you were saying unraveling, it didn't sound bad. It sounded as if maybe this is what needs to happen for you in the next stage of your life. And I wonder who will see you once all the unraveling happens, and what that looks like. So that's just me saying that. I'm not saying, oh, Sonia, you need to go to therapy.
No, I'm terrified of it. So, you know, if you said to me, you're not a therapist and let's have a chat, no problem. You could give me a therapy session without saying you're a therapist and I'd be completely fine with it. But as soon as you say this is a therapy session, block.
Yeah. It's so interesting, Sonia. It's so interesting that I actually thought you was a therapist, but you're not. But the way you...
Why would you think I'm a therapist?
I don't know. It's the way you... I think it's the way you conduct yourself, the way you say things. I don't know. Or maybe that's a journey that you actually need to embark on. I don't know. Because I literally thought, oh, there's another therapist. Okay. And then when I asked you, you said, Calvin, I'm not one. I said, what? But the way, if I didn't know, or if I showed your work to someone else, they would probably say the same thing.
No. It actually frightens me. You know, I've had a few arguments with not family, but with people in my life. And I wouldn't say arguments, let's say debates. Interesting debates.
Yeah.
And I've had it thrown at me that you should be able to deal with any people that come into your life who have trauma, because you have had trauma and you are doing a podcast on trauma. And so if someone is coming at me in a toxic way because they have experienced childhood trauma, and they're being in your life and they're behaving in a very toxic way, and you just can't, because you're not a therapist, you don't know how to deal with it, and you just can't deal with it anymore, and you say, I can't deal with it anymore, I can't do this anymore, then I've had it thrown back to me, but you doing a podcast on childhood trauma, you should be really open to this, and you should know what to do, and you should be more compassionate.
Yeah.
And it's funny that they think that. So I've been terrified that people think I'm a therapist. I'm like, I can't heal you. I don't know anything about what's going on with you.
Yeah.
Please don't look at me like that. It actually terrified me because I'm just not an expert. I just am someone who's been through some stuff.
And to be honest, that's what makes a very good therapist, the people who have been through these avenues and pathways of life because they have experience. So when they hear it and they obviously have their training, they can really tailor their work to the person they're dealing with. It's interesting as well when you said about, in terms of how the series of your podcast is going.
Mm-hmm.
So you said series 1 is about the here and now, which in our profession, the modality for that is person-centered. Then you said the second series is going to look at the childhood stuff, which in our modalities is called psychodynamic. We looks at childhood stuff happening and affecting your adult life. So you can see there's so many parallels to what you're doing. How could I not think that you're not within the field? I don't know what it is. And usually I don't even say that to many people, but I literally thought this person is within the same field as us. I don't know what it is, Sonia. I really don't. Maybe that's a journey for you that's something that is maybe later down the line you want to go into. I don't know, but you have I want to say the characteristics. That's not the word, but I'm just going to use it for now. Of someone who is within the mental health sector. So
That was very interesting. Thank you
no,
for saying that. I'd never even considered it. I mean, for me, I just think about what I struggled with, and I still see it now.
Yeah.
And how can we help? So
Yeah.
how can I help in any way?
Yeah.
That's how I'm thinking. I'm just thinking, everyone else is an expert. Let me gather all the experts together. Let's make a plan. That's my idea. It's like, well, everyone, let's get together. Let's make a plan.
Yeah.
Start with my local junior school or something and just broaden it out, And that's how I thought. I never thought about going into it myself. And I think there's a fear there. I think I really struggle with the word expert and being seen as an expert and then getting it wrong. And someone saying, oh, she's supposed to be an expert and she totally made a mistake there.
Yeah.
I think there's a huge fear there. I don't want the responsibility of that. So I'm much happier being someone who has lived experience.
I understand. If you was to have a therapist, this is just me asking, would it be a male or female?
That's an interesting question. I don't know what the answer is. Do you know, normally I have a love-hate relationship with women. I'm sure everyone listening to this is going to really hate this statement. And that is because I was so hideously bullied by groups of girls.
Right.
That but I still feel connected to the ladies. My best bonds are with the ladies. So half of me is saying, oh, I think I would love a female therapist. I think that would be fine. But the other half is saying, you haven't had that much luck with it. Maybe a male therapist would be better because it coming from a different perspective, a different approach. I don't know. I think it would depend on the relationship. When you meet someone and you instantly trust them. I think it's a trust issue.
Yeah.
If I meet a female therapist and I do this with everyone. So this is whether it's a solicitor or a chiropractor, an osteo. I do this with everyone that I bring into my life. I have a phone call with them. If I don't like their approach to their work, then I change it. I'm not working with them.
Yeah.
So for me, I would have to feel a big sense of trust with that person.
Of course.
So I don't think it matters whether it's male or female.
Okay. Would they have to be of the same culture, background?
No, I don't think so. And I think I have a bias against my own. Because, not to be bad, God, I come out with so many negative things. I should really redress myself. But I already know people in my own culture.
Right.
And I think I would like a different perspective.
Okay.
Yeah. So I kind of feel, and then this is not true, but I kind of feel that I already would know what, say, how a Mauritian therapist would approach my things, my stuff.
Right.
And so I feel like I would prefer someone of a different culture to see how they would approach it, something different.
Mm.
It doesn't have to be that way, but I wouldn't naturally go looking for someone of my own culture. But again, like I say, it does come down to trust. So
Yeah.
if you have that first discovery call and you really get on with them and you feel that they get you and that they can help you, then I think it will be fine. It shouldn't really matter what culture they are. I just wouldn't naturally gravitate to my own. I love my culture. It sounds like I don't. I love my culture and I love my people.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't naturally gravitate towards them for therapy.
Yeah, and that's perfectly fine. I guess, like you said, everyone has their preference. Everyone has their, their stuff. No, that is. Thank you for sharing that with me. That's so interesting that you spoke on that in terms of the difference when you had counseling sessions to then your thoughts on therapy and what you feel therapy would do if you was to embark on it. Is that something that in the future you may do, or is there still that, like you said to me just now, that there's the block aspect? Because it's interesting that you said if it's anything to do with therapy that you would like have your guard up.
Mm.
And I'm a therapist too, and you've come and sit with me today and you've been so open and vulnerable, which again, there's no words, not even thank you, whatever, do any justice to what you come and shared with me today. I'm wondering, would that be a future thing for you? Because you are doing a podcast where in some ways, Sonia, when I watch it, there is a therapy element to it. And I don't know if it's your questioning, I don't know if it's your presence, I don't know if it's just the space you create for people. But when I watch it, I feel like I'm in therapy in a way. I can't explain it. It's just the way you conduct it, and I guess how the guests feel from like the beginning question and throughout the duration of the podcast. I can see them being more relaxed and speaking more and being more vulnerable, and that in itself is a testament to yourself and I guess the space you create. So yeah.
Thank you, Calvin. I mean, you do the same. I felt so safe and comfortable here, You do exactly the same. I just never saw myself as a therapist. It's not something I ever imagined.
Yeah.
I guess that you're right. There are elements to it. I just never put that head on. I didn't think about it. I always saw it as being nosy. I just wanted to hear someone's story. I just want to know what's going on with you.
Yeah.
I didn't think about therapy. I just thought I want to know what that person's story is. I want to hear. And I want to see if their story is the same as mine. How did they get to it? How did they get past what they had?
Yeah.
I just wanted to know how they did it. So would I get therapy? I'm just so scared of it. I'm just so scared of it.
What do you think is going to happen? Sorry to ask.
I'm so scared of it. I just don't want to. I just have this fear, and I think this is intergenerational trauma.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So this hits on intergenerational trauma, where grandparents' fears pass down to the parents' fears that pass down to the children's fears and pass down to the great grandchildren. It's like that. So for me, on my mum's side, they absolutely have a fear of losing your mind.
Mm.
They have a fear about that. They have a fear of ghosts and spirits and things like that. They don't like anything like that and talk about anything like that. And they definitely are terrified of having any kind of dementia or anything like that. So I have friends who've had therapy, and I've had friends who have had depression, and I'm terrified that if I go into therapy that I suddenly would lose something of myself and won't be able to put myself back together again. I just really am terrified, because I get anxious, I think that's a menopausal thing. I did have anxiety when I was 17, but it didn't happen throughout my 30s. Like, I'm divorced, I'm on my second marriage, happily. And even when I was in my previous relationship where there was a lot of verbal abuse, there was a lot of, toxic behavior, I had anxiety, but I had more fear than I had anxiety. There's something different to it, you know? And because I do have a nervous disposition, and when you've gone through any kind of trauma, whether it's little or big or any kind, you tend to be in fight or flight mode quite a lot of the time. Even when you think you're relaxing, you tend to be, like I'm fast to worry about something very, very quick. I dramatize and catastrophize all the time. And so, because that is my character or my innate way of being, I would worry that if I start talking about stuff, I'd be then go home being anxious and thinking, what will happen after this session? What will happen if I say this? Am I going to be able to? Oh, I'm getting a headache now. Am I unraveling? Am I going to lose my mind? I feel like I'd really panic a lot. So I think if I spoke to someone, it would have to be it wouldn't be therapy. It would have to be a therapist who is a friend in an informal environment over coffee.
Mm.
It would have to be like that so I felt safe and I wouldn't feel that I'm going to unravel in any way because I'm in a coffee shop and we're just having a chat,
Right.
you know?
Yeah, yeah.
But it would be because I know I've had chats with some of my other extended family members, and if they say anything to me about how they perceive me to be, I take that away and I worry over it and I chew over it and I chew and chew and chew and start panicking and then I get anxious. Why would someone think I'm like that? Why, is that right? Is that true? Am I really like that? And I think because I get so anxious about it, I overthink it. And I worry that therapy will make me overthink 10 times more.
Yeah.
And then I'd feel unsafe. And I don't want to be mentally unsafe. I've always been very strong in my character. So I want to kind of stay strong. And I don't want to put myself in a vulnerable position where I might not be mentally safe.
Fully understand. Fully understand. No, I guess it's interesting to hear just your thought process, and we always are, or there's always an advocate for therapy's good, and you should go to therapy and try it. But then to hear on the other side of that is, yes, I know it's good, but if I go, this might happen, and I don't want to do that right now. I don't want to unravel at this point in time. So thank you for sharing that.
You're very welcome. I feel that sometimes over focusing on the past is not always helpful.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if the past is blocking you from moving forward, then by all means, go and seek therapy. Like if the past is blocking you from having wonderful and beautiful, loving, nurturing relationships, or it's blocking you from doing something that you really would love to do, or it's making you go down a spiral of being unhealthy and having unhealthy choices, making unhealthy choices, then by all means, go ahead and find support that you need. But if dwelling on the past is making you stressed and is making you anxious and is making you nervous and is giving you a headache,
Yeah.
and then I don't know why you would live there, you know? If your joy is helping others, and by helping others you feel joyful and you've got amazing people around you and you're loving life and you're thriving and you're going for your dreams and you're making healthy choices, then I don't know why I would have to live in the past and keep revisiting it. Because sometimes I don't think it's healthy.
Yeah, of course. What if the past has become a location for the person whereby it's, in some ways, it's become, even though it is painful and there's a negative aspect to it, what if it's become a home for them because it's all they know?
It's all they know. What can you say to that?
Mm.
That's their experience, isn't it?
Yeah.
If they're happy to exist in that space.
Mhm.
I don't know what else you can do,
Right.
you know? I don't like it. I've been in that space. I don't like it.
Yeah.
I've had, you know, a friend of mine, I wish I knew what the therapy was called. She does, her name is Sabi Hilmi, and she does this therapy, and I can't, and she'll kill me for not remembering the name, but she does something, and I did it, and it's where you go back and you revisit the memory.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
You revisit the memory, and you fix it almost, you know. So say for instance, I went back to my bullies at 5 years old.
Yeah.
You go back to that, and you talk to the bullies, and you tell them how you feel, and maybe you talk to your parents because maybe you might have felt that they didn't support you enough because they were so busy
Mhm.
working that they didn't notice what was going on with you. So maybe you speak to them as well and you tell them how you feel, and that was liberating for me. I did that and I felt liberated because, you know, I always thought it was a bit of hokey pokey nonsense, right?
Yeah.
But there are things that I saw, images that I saw that definitely wasn't me. You know, I didn't consciously create those images that came into my head. That was something else that was going on there. So when she said to me, "What would you like to say to your teacher who bullied you at 5 or 6?" I remember saying in that memory, because it was a meditation, I remember saying, "You were responsible for looking after me. It was your responsibility to make sure I was safe, and you didn't. You let me down." And so I remember her saying something like, "Put it all in a bucket, put all of those things in a bucket, what do you want to do?" And out of nowhere, and this is, that other bit, yeah, I can make that up. But this is the bit that came out of nowhere, which was I kicked that bucket at the teacher. And that came from nowhere. I tell you, I felt so good. I felt like kicking the bucket at everyone, to be honest. I was like, here, have it, you know. But it felt so good. I felt such a release. But I remember doing it again a second time. I remember doing something. I can't remember doing something similar exercise a second time. And I had terrible anxiety. I felt horrible. I felt heady in my head. I felt something heavy. And I thought, you know what? I'm not liking this. Maybe twice was too much. You know, I'm just not liking it. And it healed over a week or so. It got better and it was fine. But there was a fear that came up there that I'm digging deep into something I don't want to be digging deep into.
I understand.
You know?
Yeah. And again, that is so fine. Like, I don't want people to feel like you need to be pressured to go into therapy. Like, it's literally when people are ready to go and do those things that they should go and do, you know? But no, that was a very interesting topic, because again, going from me knowing that you're not a therapist, even though I did think you were, to now hearing your experience with therapy, and how you feel about it, and just what your experience has been, and what you think or what you know for yourself the experience would be if you was to go into it. Yeah, very interesting. And if you do decide to go one day, I'd be so honored to hear about it. Not even just on the podcast, but just in general as well. Just to see, I think in my head, I'm just thinking, or my head is stuck on the unraveling aspect that you so kindly shared. Because I can just see someone who, I think the person you know you're becoming, I think once the unraveling happens, that's all I can see. I don't even see a negative aspect. I see the person who you are becoming and will be. So yeah, that's incredible. Thank you so much for sharing with me. Sonia, before you go, before we wrap up, was there anything else you wanted to speak on? Anything else you wanted to mention? Because you've shared so much with me today. And even before I even go into that, is there anything you would say to someone who is going through adversity, going through similar things you've been through in your life? Is there any advice you would give to them, just so they can take home and, I guess, try and implement in their lives and hold on to?
I would say, look around you. Is there anyone that you could see as a support for you, a mentor. Because for me, a kind word would be such a huge encouragement for a child, or for a teenager. If you can find anyone around you, whether it's a teacher, a social worker, a best friend's mum or dad, anyone, if there's anyone in your network that you feel that is a huge support and always has a kind word for you, seek them out, talk to them, ask them for support. Because I think when you're young, you really need kindness around you,
You do.
And they say a child is raised by a village, and I really believe that's true. I mean, I had a village, I had amazing people around me, but still I suffered, and it's because the old style of parenting is different to this, I don't know about yours, but old school, their parenting was way different.
Definitely.
Yeah. It wasn't about encouragement, it's about get the stuff done.
Yeah.
And so now that we've got the gentle parenting revolution and everything now, I think if you will have a lot of kids out there, teenagers particularly, who are going through some hard times. And if there is anything that they can find around them, anywhere, a neighbour who's kind, stick with them and hang out with them, because you just need one person in your life that can support you, to lead you to greater things, to give you that support,
Yeah. Sonia, I want to throw some rapid fun questions at you so the listeners can get to know you a bit more, if that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
What's your favourite season and why?
I love spring. I love spring because of the promise of summer to come.
Okay. I've never heard that before. The promise of summer to come.
Because summer is already here, then you've got winter and autumn, winter, right? You're going downhill from there. So we need the warmth. I'm tropical. I need the warmth. So for me, I don't want summer to be here already. I want it to be coming soon, so that it's always coming.
Yeah.
It's getting warmer. So spring is my favorite.
Okay. If you could work anywhere in the world remotely with what you do, where would you go and why?
Oh my God, there's so many places. I could go to Barbados. I could go to Mauritius. I could go to Thailand. I could go to, where else would I go? Italy, Greece. Oh my God, any of these beautiful hot countries, I would go.
Nice. Do you have a favourite book or film?
These are really difficult questions because I don't have one. I have 10. I would say, okay, favourite film was always Dirty Dancing growing up. But now I think Harry Potter's taken it because of my love of not being in reality.
Escapism.
And escapism, magic. Harry Potter's my favourite. Book, I was always a Wuthering Heights and Pride and Prejudice girl.
Okay.
The classics, literature classics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And last question. What's your favourite quote?
Can I remember a quote? I don't think I can even remember a quote. Let me think. There's that one, I can't really remember it, but the one that says something, I don't remember exactly, like something like love like you've never been loved, dance like no one's watching, something like that.
Yeah, I know which one.
That's the one I like because I'm very self-conscious and it's all about letting go and being free. And I feel like I've put myself in a cage. I put myself in a cage because I feel like you should be this way. You should say this. Like throughout this session, I've always said, oh, people are going to think this about me, or I shouldn't have said that, or I should be a bit more positive.
Yeah.
It's a constant me putting a shoulds around myself. So I love that quote because it reminds you to just be free, break yourself out of these restrictions you're putting on yourself.
Sonia, thank you so much. I mean, we could keep going, but I know you have things to do. So definitely part 2 for sure. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been your host, Calvin Anderson with the Check-In With podcast. We've had Sonia today. And please go and check out her podcast. Sonia, please plug your podcast, please.
Thank you so much for having me, Calvin. I've loved it. It's called Un-Seen Legacies of Childhood, and I am Sonia Seekunto.
Ladies and gentlemen, have a good evening. Take care. Speak soon. God bless.